the Chinese. And it's very nice because the Chinese is based, it's monosyllabic, it's one syllable at a time. So at the top line is Na Mo Bo Ro Hui Shang Fo Bu Sa. So we've got a percussion instrument, this wooden fish. Here's the fish part. Right? Yeah. Swimming along. And so it's because it's monosyllabic, it's got a rhythm to it, and it's easy to remember, easy to adjust your heartbeat to it, and your footsteps going down the road. Boro, bolo, nido, shinjing, guanzi, sai, pu, sa. So there's a lot you can do with the monosyllabic quality of the Chinese. But we also have our current translation of it with some changes where to say it's been translated is a very fluid experience.
Exercise ring closed.
Thank you. It's not a done deal. There will be, this is a big improvement over previous translations, and I predict that there will be future improvements of it. So this is translation number 2, one from Sanskrit into Chinese back in the Tang Dynasty, back in the 9th century, 8th century. And then this, which was done in 1975, maybe 1976, and improved since then. And there are many different versions. You go online, you'll probably find a dozen different English translations that differ certain, more or less. So that's what we're doing. For those, the reason I'm giving you this background is to say, some of you go, gee whiz, I couldn't be farther away from a Chinese language translation, a Chinese language version of it. So, okay, so take a step closer to it. It's actually kind of interesting to hear those of us who have studied Chinese are able to look at the Chinese graphs, the characters, but that's not everybody. So we've given the sounds on top in ABCs, romanized. So guan, zi, zai, pu, sa. The little marks on top, those are tone marks. And when we're reciting in the sutra, when we're reciting, going right along through it, you drop those tones. If you were saying it, you would add the tones, guan, zi, zai, pu, sa, like that. So we don't worry about the tones. Chinese is a tonal language. This is Mandarin, has 4 tones and then a neutral tone. Cantonese has 8 or 9, some people say. So anyway, it is fun to hear these unusual sounds coming out of your mouth and going through your sense apparatus. It's unique. And that's one of the fun parts of coming to our monastery is we really do preserve bilingual. If you're Vietnamese, trilingual. In America, I'm in Berkeley, California, and more than half of our community is Vietnamese American. So 3 languages. Bit by bit in California, it's going to be Spanish. So I will have to add Spanish. So, okay. So let's jump in and we'll do the Namo Boro Hui Shang Fo Pu Sa 3 times to begin with. Okay. Okay. No. Yeah. One more time. Gao Shan Cha. I'm empty. All right. Namo Boro Hui Shang Fo Pu Sa. Namo Boro Hui Shang Fo Pu Sa. Namo Boro Hui Shang Fo Pu Sa. Raise the pitch a little bit. Boro, 金山般若波罗蜜多时，照见五蕴皆空，度一切苦。舍利子，斯不异空，空不异色，斯即是空，空即是受伤心是亦复如是。舍利子，是诸法空相不生，不高不净，不增不减，是不空。无受伤心事，无眼耳鼻舌身，无思想尚未出发，无云界乃至无意识，无明亦无无明，乃至无老死亦无老死，无苦集灭道，无智亦无。一无所得故，菩提萨埵依般若波罗蜜多，心无挂碍，无挂碍，无有恐怖，远离颠倒梦，究竟涅槃，三世诸佛依般若阿耨多罗三藐三菩不知般若波罗蜜多是大圣，是大明就是无上，是无当等就能出一切真实不虚不说般若波罗蜜多，一说周夜波罗僧。菩提萨埵。Any questions about that experience? Is that transparent? Valuable? It's certainly different if we're not familiar with those Chinese sounds. And the just I'll say a minute before we flip it over and do the English. These texts have been in people's voices and in people's minds and in their ears for thousands of years, literally, in that what we just did. And because it's short, it gets recited a lot. For example, I was part of a international Buddhist conference in Ningbo. This one was in Hangzhou, and there were, what was it, 8,000 people there or something from all over the world, 70 different countries of Buddhists from all those countries. And the conference was 3 days long, and it began with one bit of liturgy, one bit of ceremony, only the Heart Sutra. They did an incense praise, Heart Sutra, transferred merit. That's it. That's all they did. We're used to doing, 2.5 hours every day of ceremonies here, just at all our monasteries. This giant conference, this was what everybody wanted to do. It has that much pull, that much power in the sounds that it makes. Never mind the meaning. That's, of course, another whole story, is what does it mean now that we've said those sounds? So, okay, let's flip it over, and we'll do homage to the Prajna Assembly, that sentence 3 times as well. Homage to the Prajna Assembly of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas as vast as the sea. Homage to the Prajna Assembly of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas as vast as the sea. Homage to the Prajna Assembly of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas as vast as the sea. The heart of Prajna Paramita Sutra, when Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara was practicing the profound Prajna Paramita, she illuminated the 5 skandhas and saw that they were all empty, and she crossed beyond all suffering and difficulty. Shariputra, form does not differ from emptiness. Emptiness does not differ from form. Form itself is emptiness. Emptiness itself is form. So too are feeling, cognition, formation, and consciousness. Shariputra, all dharmas are empty of characteristics. They are not produced, not destroyed, not defiled, not pure, and they neither increase nor diminish. Therefore, in emptiness there is no form, feeling, cognition, formation, or consciousness. No eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, or mind. No sights, sounds, smells, object of touch, or dharmas. No field of the eyes, up to and including no field of mind consciousness. And no ignorance or ending of ignorance, up to and including no old age and death, or ending of old age and death. There is no suffering, no accumulating, no extinction, and no way, and no understanding, and no attaining, because nothing is attained. The Bodhisattva, through reliance on Prajna Paramita, is unimpeded in her mind. Because there is no impediment, she is not afraid, and she leaves distorted dream thinking far behind. Ultimately, nirvana, all Buddhas of the three periods of time attain Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi through reliance on Prajna Paramita. Therefore, know that Prajna Paramita is a great spiritual mantra, a great bright mantra, a supreme mantra, an unequaled mantra. It can remove all suffering. It is genuine and not false. That is why the mantra of Prajna Paramita was spoken. Recite it like this. Gate, gate, paragate, parasamgate, bodhisvaha. End of the heart of Prajna Paramita Sutra, which is not printed, that last one. Okay, by golly, well done. What do you think, Ellie? Have you learned to memorize that? Can you recite it by memory with your eyes closed? Not yet. Okay. Someday. It took me, I was already, I think, 22 years old when I finally memorized it. So you have a little ways to go. Why is the Heart Sutra a big deal? It's got, this is part of a larger body of literature called the Prajna Paramita literature. Prajna is wisdom. Paramita, Sanskrit word that means to go across, to carry across from this. They say it's an analogy. We are here in the shore of birth and death. And let me start over again. We're here on the shore of trouble, things breaking up, things falling apart. This is where we are. And we're looking at this river going along. And the river is just trouble, right? Birth and death, old age, sickness, misery. But the other side is the other shore of nirvana, they say, another Sanskrit word, which means the coming and the going stops. Nirvana just means cessation, no further becoming. It's freedom from being pushed again back into a temporary form that gets old, gets sick, that dies, comes back. So we're crossing over, and paramitas takes you across. So birth and death, end of birth and death, and trouble in the middle. Just all this stuff. Not always. Sometimes it's joyful, but it doesn't last and it falls apart. So this is the wisdom that takes you across. That's how it goes. Now, what is it? This text is a major solvent. You know, they talk about, there's that funny joke about the universal solvent doesn't exist. You can't have a universal solvent because it would dissolve the bottle that was holding it. So nothing can hold a universal solvent. It would just absolutely wipe out any container. So you don't have it. But this is the closest thing. How does it work? It's not, so there's no, none of this, this doesn't exist. There is no, right? All the way through, it just takes everything. It's just eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind. These things don't exist. Obviously, on its face is a challenge to logic. Right. The Buddha, this is from the Buddha's point of view. This, the Prajnaparamita texts, interestingly enough, here's the history of them, which helps us kind of deal with the fact that it makes no sense. It totally contradicts itself in line after line. So the Buddha did not teach this at the beginning. The meditators who came around saw the Buddha was already at that place of no further becoming, no further suffering or grief. And they said, we want to learn what you know. Please teach us what you know. So the Buddha said, okay, you need to, first of all, learn how to be a righteous person. You need to know how to live well. And then once I see that you're kind of got your feet in the ground of being a good person, I'll teach you how to meditate. Meditation did not come first. It was, the first was lessons in cleaning up your act, living righteously, making fewer mistakes as a person, hurting fewer people, living in a righteous way. After they did that, and they were specific, the Buddha said, if you want to do what I did, avoid killing, cherish life instead. Avoid stealing, be generous instead. Avoid sexual misconduct. Keep your vows, keep the promises you make instead. And if you're not paired, then don't harm people with selfish desire. That's, so be righteous instead. Number 4, don't tell lies, tell the truth instead. And then the last one is stay sober, because you're going to need clarity in your mind to see what rises up. And if you've got intoxicants in your bloodstream, you've got alcohol or substances or whatever your friends are using, then when your thoughts arise, you won't see them clearly. You'll be confused by what they do. So very specific instructions about what the Buddha meant when he said, clean up your act if you want to do what I did. And inside of all this, no judgment. He's not saying, and I will like you more, or you're a bad person if you don't. None of that. There was no self-righteousness. It was the standards for how to be a person. And so that was from the Buddha. And if you go over here and you look at Islam, Islam says the very same thing. We had one of our young trainees in Los Angeles went to Shandong province to go to college. He went to Jinan University. And he said he couldn't live with his Chinese classmates because they were smoking and drinking and running around. He went to live with the Islamic exchange students because they were following a righteous lifestyle. He felt more comfortable with his Islamic classmates because they didn't drink, they didn't run around. Interesting. So, so there we are. He said, do that. If you can do those things, Islam, if you look at the Quran says, this is how you be a righteous person. If you look at the 10 commandments of the Hebrew Bible, thou shalt not kill, steal, lust, covet your neighbor's spouse, or bear false witness, lie. 4 out of 5. 10 Commandments says nothing about alcohol or intoxicants. Interesting. So yeah, okay, that's all right. So the Buddhists tend to be a pretty sober bunch if they're meditating, if they really want to do what the Buddha did. Then you look at what else? Patanjali's yoga aphorisms, Hinduism, the core of Hindu practice says a righteous person does not kill, steal, lust, lie, or use intoxicants. So interestingly, independently, Islam, Judaism, Christianity, and Hinduism and Buddhism all agree on the basic definition of a person, right? Things to avoid if you want to be, in Judaism, they say a mensch, or righteous man or woman. So that's what you do. Okay. Then you get to meditation. So that's what the Buddha, then he did. And the first thing he taught for meditation was counting your breath. Watching the breath come in, fill the lungs from the bottom, the middle, and the top, and then exhale, top, middle, bottom, again. So the Buddha did teach counting the breath as a method. And then he taught other techniques as the monks and nuns needed them. Only after 30 years did the Buddha start teaching, Prajnaparamita. And he taught it, they say, for 10 years. So he taught for 49 years in total. So like 2/3 almost of his teaching career, well, not almost, precisely, had passed before he thought people were ready to look through his eyes. This is a view of reality through his eyes. And it reads essentially like a chemistry textbook. This doesn't exist, but it does. On the mundane level, eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind are important. From his ultimate level, those things only arise temporarily because the thing that holds them is temporary, the body. It comes together because of conditions, and it falls apart when those conditions are gone. So this is a radical, profound, penetrating view of reality here. This is, when I call it a physics textbook, it is. He's looking at matter entirely. What does this come from? Obviously, it's an organic thing, wood. So wood, put it next to fire, it transforms really quickly into ash. So this is not ultimate. There is no ultimate wood, but what do we call it? Wood, or better, a banger and a handle, right? It's a handle and it's a banger at the same time. And it's brown at the same time. So all those things, bell banger, handle, color, etc., shape, those are all conventions that we use for convenience, but ultimately it's none of those things. It's conditions coming together to create this thing called wood and all that it does, but it was a tree and it will be ash and something else. It could be fertilizer in a field, right? So from that point of view, this is fact, what the Buddha is saying. On the surface, it looks contradictory, but he's saying from his ultimate point of view, there is nothing that can be grabbed. And here's where it gets really interesting, because he then, not only does he look outside and say, all things are made up of conditions, he turns the analysis around and looks at the thing that is doing the observing. The body and the mind doesn't exist ultimately either. He dissolves the viewer as well as what is viewed. So that's where this gets really profound. And yet, the Buddha is not saying that car coming down Benogan Road doesn't exist, so you can step out into traffic, no problem. He doesn't say that. He says, mind you, observe traffic laws, because you'll discover quickly that car does exist and it will hurt you. He's saying, use common sense, but I'm talking to meditators. Are you meditating? Do you want to follow me? If so, in your meditation, based on your wholesome character, when you get to the second step of our formula, which is character, focus or insight, samadhi, and then wisdom and insight that comes from that, he says, you will notice that things start to change and you'll experience transformations in your body and your mind. He said, stick with it, keep going. That's where wisdom will arise. So that's what this is about. It's really helpful to when we're basically in good health and we have a lot of choices. We came to the monastery on a Saturday afternoon. We could go out, get some ice cream, on the way home. We're on, Anzac weekend, a lot of choices. When we're sick, our choices are greatly shrunk. My head is pounding. I really, or I've been fired. I got notice from Doge that not only have I been let go from my job, my agency doesn't exist anymore. And Elon Musk has, decided in his wisdom that we're no longer. So what do you do when things go bad? That's when this really comes into its strength. Is you go, what is there ultimately to cling to? What is there to depend on? The answer from the Buddhist point of view, if you apply this, is wisdom. Insight into principle is pretty much the only reliable thing, because everything else is impermanent. Everything else is in flux, is moving along. So we got a dad and a son, right? So the Buddha would say, cherish every second of that relationship because it is dynamically transforming. You know, I look into the mirror and I don't see myself as 75 years old, but by golly, am. You know, it's like wrinkles. Whoa, where did that come from? It's like, you know, we every breath in this body is precious, and you could say even counted. How many more breaths do I have in this body before I move on? And from the Buddhist point of view, we do. We've had lifetimes in the past, we will continue on. It's just constant transformation. And with that in mind, he would add probably, so do a good job because cause and effect is really true. We're planting the seeds of what we will become today as we are living through the choices we made in the past, right this minute. This is a product of what we did. What we're doing now is the birth of what will come. So that's wisdom. He's saying, do a good job, check it out, help other people while you have a chance. Do as much good as you possibly can in the form that you have while you're healthy and have choices. I mean, once, you know, once a fire takes your house away and all your possessions, suddenly in Los Angeles, man, wow, you know, there they were. That neighborhood, what was it? Not, I've forgotten the name of the two neighborhoods that were not Highland Park, but overnight, suddenly, these multi-million-dollar homes were ash, and people have to suddenly get it together to think, oh man, I got to call my mom. Oh, my phone was in my bedroom over there, and there's only a chimney left, you know. Nothing, just in times like that, what do we depend on? What do we have to count on? So this is very helpful because it doesn't change. This text has been, you know, lighting the way to being able to keep our balance in the midst of transition, in the midst of change. These principles are really true. And so, however, now that being said, for 29 years, the Buddha's disciples didn't have it because they weren't ready. Their meditation had not taken them to that place where organically they were actually experiencing change like this. So, okay, this is, if this were a college course, we would already be in the 300s, right? This is not beginning. So just to say, if meditation is new for us, then you have this for reference, to kind of tuck it in your backpack and keep it around so that when the time comes, you'll remember. Now, there's another whole side of the Heart Sutra and its bigger brother, which is over there on the wall, called the Diamond Sutra. That's those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 panels are the expanded version. This is called the heart of Prajnaparamita. That's the diamond, the Vajra Prajnaparamita. There are about 6 other versions. The largest one is called the Maha Prajnaparamita, and it's many, many volumes. It still talks about the very same principles, which is emptying things out. So what does the Heart Sutra teach? Emptiness, but not as a proposition about reality. It's emptying. If you are, through your meditation, can genuinely say, yeah, I understand that my body is this buzzing structure of electrical connections. Acupuncture feels the qi going through the meridians and got my nerves and I got my circulation and I've got my metabolism and all of the different, all that stuff. And yet, when I look inside and say, who is in there? It keeps coming up with nobody. Who is ultimately inside? That's what a meditator does, is looking to find. And ultimately, what you have is the search itself until there's a real transformation. That's this enlightenment experience that people talk about. So meanwhile, back where we are, still like crossing our legs and kind of waiting for the bell to ring because it's not very comfortable sitting here. What am I supposed to be doing? Am I doing it right? I don't, is this, what's supposed to happen when I'm meditating here? So really good question. And the best thing that I can suggest is I meditate because I like to find out what's on my mind. And the only way I really find out what's on my mind is by reviewing as it arises, as it comes up. And what I discovered is I have some really stubborn patterns that somehow maybe in the past, has to be in the past, I have established of things that I like and things that I don't like, things I'm afraid of and things I'm drawn to, things that always sneak up on me from behind. They catch me in the blind side. And then other things that I just cling to and can't let go of. All of this stuff, all this baggage is in my mind. And if I don't look at it, it's still there, but it'll get me. If I look at it without anything else going on, without other input, I have a chance to recognize it and not trip over it as often. But man, the other day, I was I'm behind in my writing. I have writing projects that are they're boiling on the stove, and I'm like, I think I'd rather just go sleep, and maybe I let that go tomorrow. It's like, no, don't. And I caught myself in meditation that day saying and thinking the very same things that I said and thought when I was 12 years old. 12 years old with my brother back in Toledo, Ohio, arguing over, I have a messy desk. He has a very tidy desk. We shared a desk. My dad built it. And he drew a line down the center and said, you keep your stuff on your side of the desk. Don't slap your stuff over on my side of the desk. And here I was, no longer 12 years old, I'm like 4 times 12 years, 5, 6 times 12 years old. And I'm still doing the same thing. And it was like so humbling to see, like, I have not changed my fundamental, the landscape of my mind is just the way it was 60 years ago. How embarrassing, like, what is going on? Why, how powerful are habits? Habits are very powerful. So on one hand, you could say, well, self-awareness is a good thing. To be able to catch myself doing my habits is a step in the right direction. At least it's self-aware. But when I add to it, following that humbling, catching myself in the full glare of old habits, it came along behind it some other insights about ways that I behaved when I was, before I met Buddhism and before I met my teacher, that were really harmful and selfish. And this week was a week of major bathing in humiliating, self-awareness, man. So what do we do? Instead of running from it, say that any chance I get to be self-aware is a gift. It's really helpful to see yourself without the glamour of self-aggrandizement or rationalization. Well, that's because so-and-so, it's really. and all the things that we do to avoid looking at ourselves, right? To be able to see it in the cold light of truth is hard to bear, but better than not seeing it. And I credit that to the sitting that I'm doing, if you can stand it, you know. So interestingly, around the monastery, when you have a good teacher, as we did, our teacher's Master Shren Hua, he's there in the altar. Around the monastery, you didn't hear him talk about enlightenment. He wouldn't say, "Oh, who's enlightened? Let's get enlightened fast." What he talked about was, he said, change your bad habits and faults. Let's not fight to be number one, all you people, you Americans, you go-getters. He said, you all think you're number one, the best. Everything you want is the best, number one. He said, that's your national habit. And I thought, why is he criticizing us like that? What does he know about America? Sure enough, we had our biggest monastery is a former state hospital in California. And I was in the bathroom cleaning, and there was a fixture over the toilet, which was what? This was an institutional hospital. There was a metal container that was toilet seat covers, right? And you were supposed to, when you were out, you replaced them. It was the metal box that had toilet seat covers, right? What did it say? First in protection, first in quality. And I thought, he's right. We really do always want to be first and number one. He said, that's great if you're in the marketplace, go for it. If you're in the cultivation place, if you're in the way place where you're practicing, you don't want to have a self that struggles to put everybody else behind you. He said, that's an attachment that will not help you cultivate the way. So all this awareness is like so interesting. This is a long answer. Why do you meditate? What am I supposed to be doing while I'm sitting here? My answer is it helps to make fewer mistakes because you can see yourself without the stories that we tell about ourselves and how important we are, or in converse, low self-esteem. We're taught that I'm only a girl, so that means my accomplishments are very limited. I can't be a scientist. I don't know about Australia, but it was really, really true in America that in public education, after 6th grade, girls were not encouraged to take science, right? I don't know if that was the case in Australia, but it was, there are certain things that are suitable for girls and boys should do the rest, you know? So that's a particularly culturally blind perspective and bias that does not serve. So anyway, that's my reason for meditating. Now, let me share it. Let's shift gears now. There's another whole side to the Heart Sutra that has to do with I won't apologize for it. I'll just give you the way Buddhists inside the monastery talk about it. When somebody can recite the Heart Sutra, there are protective spirits around it that come to you and will help you get through your day safely. There's literature of stories collected over 1400 years of people who recited the Heart Sutra, and particularly the Diamond Sutra, and who in times of floods, fires, shipwrecks, warring armies, disease, etc., if they recited the Heart Sutra, they passed through the crisis and emerged on the other side safely. I'll give you 2 of these just for interest, and I won't apologize. I'll just say this is how the tradition talks about it, right? You can deal with it however you choose. So there is a there's a body of literature in Chinese Buddhism of what are they called? Near death experiences. People who die medically and then sometimes 1 day, 2 days, 3 days later return before the cremation, before the embalming. And they sit up on the gurney, and everybody's like, "Wow, you're back! It's a ghost!" And in this literature, they tell stories about what they saw in the meantime, where they went and what they saw. And there was one in particular, and this is actually, interestingly, this is recent. This is not from the Tang Dynasty, in high antiquity. This is relatively recently. This is in the 60s. This guy passed away suddenly and for no apparent reason. And the doctors couldn't decide what was wrong with him. And so the family was mourning, and 48 hours passed, and he sat up and said, "Boy, I'm hungry. Where have I been?" And his family is like totally distraught. What's going on? What's happening? He said, I met these two characters. They're very tall, and they had black hats on their heads. And they said, "Time to come with us." And I said, "Who are you and where are we going?" And they didn't answer. They just took me, and we flew, he said, and traveled fast through space. And then he said he was aware of crossing a river, body of water, and he arrived at a gate, and it was the classic Dante's, "Abandon hope, all ye who enter here" kind of thing. And he's like, "Oh no, what have I done?" And so he wasn't in the hells, he was in the ante room to the hells. And he said it was set out like a courtroom. There were multiple courts, with the magistrates and judges and such. And he said he had to kind of wait his turn, and he could smell the terrible smells coming from below. He could feel the heat down below. Clearly, that was a place he didn't want to go. And he could hear the cries and all. But this was still a very kind of a well-used public courtroom, so it's a civil building. And it was his turn, and he came up, and he said he came before the judge, and the judge got his name and said, "Have you done anything good in your life?" And the man said, "Such as," and the judge said, "Can you recite any spiritual scriptures?" And luckily, this gentleman had memorized the Heart Sutra. And so he said, yes, I know the Prajnaparamita Sutra. And so the judge, King Yama, set his gavel down, came down, and stood in front of him with his palms together and said, "Recite it for me. I want to hear it." Right? So luckily, Boro Volo Mido Shinjin Guanzi Zai Pusao Shingenbo recited for him. King Yama said, "Very good." He got back up on the desk, and he said, "Now tell me your name again." And I said, "Philip Hoffman," and he said, "Which Philip Hoffman?" He said, "I'm Philip Hoffman." He said, "Are you the Philip Hoffman of Weehawken, New Jersey? Or are you the Philip Hoffman of Denver, Colorado? Denver, Colorado. And King Yama scolded the jailer and said, "You got the wrong one." He said, "Send him back." So he said, "I woke up, I'm back." And he says, "Boy, am I glad I recited the Heart Sutra." He said, "I might have gone off on a bureaucratic error to a prison in El Salvador, and had my head shaved." So, and they wouldn't acknowledge or take me back. So anyway, that's one story. And okay, it's a near-death experience. Do you believe it? Do you not believe it? There's another story that is completely factual. A monk named Xuanzang was in the early years of the Tang Dynasty, just passing out of the sixth dynasty. So this is 700, 7th century, 640 something like 632 or something like that. And he had made a vow to go to India from Chang'an. He actually he was precocious, a really smart young man. He was a monk already, and he knew that the sutras, the scriptures that existed in China at the time, many of them were incomplete, or in some cases inaccurate, poorly translated. So he said, we really got to work with better original texts. I'm going to China to see if I can't get some original manuscripts. So he was not the first one to make a vow like this. There were many other monks who did. Most of them left their bones somewhere along the trail, either the Taklamakan Desert or the Himalayas, the tallest mountains in the world, or Afghanistan, current day Afghanistan. He went right through Afghanistan. He came down through Pakistan, through Kashmir, where the shooting just happened. He spent a month or two in Kashmir, Jammu, Kashmir, where there's a shooting war happening between India and Pakistan right now. So anyway, on down. And before he left, it was difficult for him to leave China at the time because the new emperor said, until we get the borders of China stable, nobody can leave the country, because he had deposed the last emperor, and there's a period of getting your procedures settled before you let people come in and out. So the law was nobody leaves. Master Xuanzang had made the vow to go, and so he had to decide, is he going to break the law and leave, or is he going to, follow his heart or follow the law? So, okay. Now, on his way out, he was in Chang'an, which is now the city of Xi'an. It was the border. Through Xi'an, you're into the hinterland. And he had to find a guide, because he'd never been to India. There were no GPS, there were no maps. So he made a couple false starts, and he realized that he didn't have enough blessings to really get the push that he needed. And right at that time, he was taking shelter in a monastery, and one of the monks there had a terrible skin disease, and his skin was just covered in boils and covered in pus and just smelly and awful. And none of the monks wanted to get close to him, didn't want to have anything to do with this guy. Master Xuanzang, being a compassionate soul, said, I'll take care of you. He said, I don't care. You need help. I have 2 hands, 2 feet. I'll help you. So he did. He nursed the monk back to health. It took about a month. And the monk, at the end of the period, said, okay. He said, you are truly an extraordinary young man. He said, I'm going to give you something. I know what you're about to do, and I encourage you to go ahead. He said, I'm going to give you something that you can use along the road. And he said, in Sanskrit, prajna hridayam samaptam avalokiteshvaram. He taught him the Heart Sutra in Sanskrit, and then said, you need to translate it and recite it in Chinese. He said, particularly that mantra at the bottom, gate, gate, paragate, parasamgate, bodhisvaha, jedi, jedi, bolo samjedi, puti soha. He said, learn that and recite it. He said, I'm not going to let you go until I hear you recite it correctly. So Master Xuanzang, being a quick study, learned it in Sanskrit, recited it back to him, and the monk said, okay, that's my repayment for your healing of my illness, he said. He said, that's a treasure. He said, guard it well. And disappeared. Who was that monk? So Master Xuanzang went out, and long story short, just so many challenges, so many crises, so many troubles, including once he got out on the desert. And I've been to Xinjiang province, which is what he had to pass through. There's nothing there. It's just like the outback. It's just like Western Queensland, you know. There's just nothing there but flies and sand and rock and these foul winds. And he was a journalist and he kept a journal and we read what he wrote. He said one night there was no moon and he was disoriented. He kind of lost his bearing because the wind blows the sand dunes in all directions, every different. You wake up in the morning and it looks all different because the wind rearranged the landscape overnight. So he says he's out there and in the dark, he sees these horsemen running at him full tilt. And their horses they keep coming into focus and then going out and they kind of fade and then they re-materialize over here and they fade and they're coming right at him. And he can see a long way and they're now, because they're phosphorescent, these horsemen are putting off some sort of fey kind of light. And they're coming at him, right at him. And he knows that he's their focus because he sees them coming. And spontaneously in his mind, he thinks, Gate, Gate, Paragate, Parasamgate, Bodhisvaha, the heart of Prajna, Paramita Sutra, when Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara, you know. And he recited the Heart Sutra, and he said it was just like a rock in a stream. They flowed around him and they couldn't touch him. And these were demonic apparitions. They swung swords at him and the swords passed right through, couldn't touch him. He kept reciting the Heart Sutra until they just subsided and they were gone. And he says, he writes in his journal, I have no doubt that the Heart Sutra was the protection that I needed, given to me by that kind monk who prepped me for my journey. So how interesting, right? The man who had died and gone to the hell, to the anteroom, to purgatory by mistake, because he had memorized the Heart Sutra, King Yama took a second look at him and decided that he had come by mistake. And then Master Shenzong reciting it for protection. So that's another side of this simple document. As I say, I could apologize for it and give you all of the, you know, you don't have to think about it that way unless you choose. Forget that. That's what some people say. That's how some people use it. Other people just meditate on it. Recite it when they sit. Some people recite sutras when they meditate. When the Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara was practicing the profound prajna paramita, just bring up a sentence every now and then, just to kind of let their minds settle with it. So, okay, any questions? Clear as mud. What do you think? Is that, do I need to apologize on the woo-woo parts? What do you think? Is that, some people can hear that and just go, oh, you know, those Buddhists, they talk like that. What do you think, Karina? Is that those stories, are those acceptable or not?
Yes.
Do they need apologies and something in front, something behind to?
No apologies.
Sweet sugar to help the medicine go down, you know? So, all right. So we decided we were going to use this text for this semester of class, and if you go through it line by line, it's really, really challenging because it is self-contradictory. And the point of that is to show from the Buddha's vision, there are two levels of truth. There's a relative truth, which is where we are in duality. Right and wrong is still right and wrong. True and false is still true and false. But there's an ultimate truth, which takes this physics view, this physics level, the solvent that just cuts through. And anybody who studied philosophy, Western philosophy, there's a school of Catholic, Roman Catholic philosophy that talks about negation, taking via negativa, the negative path, which says neither this nor that. And the idea being to arrive at an ultimate place where the mind isn't stuck in theory, right or wrong. How do you decide, right? You don't. You set those aside, say neither right nor wrong, puts the mind in a place of stillness and fullness. That's another way to look at this. So it's people who are into Western philosophy find this very appealing. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Is the emptiness that is spoken there, because I'm trying to translate it into Indonesian, and is that what you said about neither right nor wrong? Is emptiness something like non-duality? Just zero, not negative, it's not positive?
The way I approach it is it's an ing verb. It's a gerund verb, emptying. It's for use. It's not a description of a state. I mean, it is, but you don't want to put yourself in the position of saying, oh, the Buddha says this isn't real. What he said was empty it out, meaning sound, hearing organ, consciousness in between, telling the difference. I understand that there is a time before that sound. There's a time when it rings and it will diminish, and there'll be a time after I can. So you're emptying it out instead of saying, oh, that didn't exist. That's an unsustainable state, right? Just like I heard it, you heard it. Don't try to say it is empty, it is not empty. We are emptying the experience out through analysis, through looking at it like it really is. And you can go, I mean, you can go nuts. You can say, oh, is sound a particle or is it a wave? Let me get my, my meter out to look at the waveform. You can go there, but that's bottomless. Or you can just say, in my experience, I really don't know where that vibration stops. How far does that sound wave travel in the eastern direction? How far? And so you go, wow, that's really profound. When I empty it out, what I come back to is my mind. And the mind is the source of all this experience. And there is nothing, what does it say? Nothing is attained. There is no understanding and no attaining. You're never going to get the mind, but we live in that mind. Did I? Oh, shoot, I didn't. I know. I was going to, I put something in my bag for everybody today, which was the poems of Stonehouse, Shi Wu, Dharma Master Shi Wu. It's here. Here we go. I got it. I have a Kindle on my phone, thank goodness. Okay. Stonehouse was a Ming Dynasty poet, and where is it? Oh, now that I've built it up, I really hope I can find it. The poems of Stonehouse. Dharma Master Hung Lai has a translation group, a translation group that meets 3 times a week, and we're working on Stonehouse. And so the reason why I brought him up was in the midst of this emptying out process, you don't need to analyze every experience. You simply live gracefully in between, knowing that sound object, ear organ, consciousness of it, you can't get it, and yet we're surrounded by it. You can't let it go either. Live in between and help other people. That's the point, right? So you can go nuts just trying to grab it, and you'll never grab it. Don't think a mountain home means you're free. A day doesn't pass without its cares. Old ladies steal my bamboo shoots. Boys lead oxen into the wheat. Grubs and beetles destroy my greens. Pigs and squirrels devour the rice. Things don't always go my way. What can I do but turn to myself? Emptying, right? Yeah, I like this one. I can't read the Chinese. Some of the words are, he was before he became a monk, he was a failed scholar. And so his poems are really quite literary. Okay, green gullies and red cliffs wherever I look, and my thatched hut in between. Beneath a patched robe, my body stays warm. I've forgotten my worries along with today's date. Rushes grow thin where the soil is rocky. Bamboo shoots grow tall where it's deep. Sometimes at midnight, I hear a bell and I remember there's a temple down below. Right? Isn't that lovely? That all this stuff is going on, but he's like, his ear is not reaching out to hear the sound of the bell, to remember, oh yes, there's a monastery. He's like, let it be. I'm full and content right here. So with the knowledge of what the Heart Sutra can do, what it does is it gives us a basis to live righteously without feeling somehow that life is too much. You know, there's so much goodness in gracefully avoiding extremes, helping people when you can. That's a righteous life. And being able to watch your thoughts rise and catch your bad habits as they arise, that's a real gift. So that's my thinking at the moment. Any questions or comments? Sam? Nope. We had a kids camp today. We had with actual kids. Here's an actual kid who was one of our campers. So are you flying back to Cairns?
Got it.
Happy Anzac weekend. I decided not to afflict you with my Anzac song, right? You all know the band played Waltzing Matilda. You know that? Sing it every year. I'll probably do it tomorrow. Fair warning. Yeah. So. But I did bring, I still call Australia home. And also, I am, you are. You can't sing that song without tearing up. Amazing. Do you think that'll ever be the national anthem? Probably not. A lot of people think it should be. Ian, do you know I Am Australian, The Seekers? Oh, my God.
On TV.
Yes.
Yeah.
The farewell concert.
Yeah.
People, I was watching that yesterday, and all the there's 1,200 comments, and everybody's going, Judith Durham, you know, her voice takes paint off the wall. It's so strong. Yeah. It would be very interesting if that could be the new national anthem. Advance Australia Fair is okay. It sounds national. It sounds anthemy, you know, da dee da 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 dee, like that. But I am, you are, we are Australian. Pretty special. Okay, we're on page 3 of your song sheet. We can dedicate merit. This is our closing. We still got, we'll be here next week.
No, this is last class. Actually, the future and then you fly. So this is last class.
Okay, this is the last class for this semester. So the way dedication of merit works is you make a wish of send out all of the goodness that comes from spending a couple hours in the afternoon at the monastery with good friends. Make a better world with whatever way you would like to do it, dedicating your merit. Goodness. How can we make a better world? You know, we sang this morning and it was too low. I actually have a capo and boost it up a bit. This guitar is tuned down a half step. So here we go. Every living being, our minds as one and radiant with light, share the fruits of peace with hearts of goodness, luminous and bright. If people hear and see, our hands and hearts can find unity. May our minds awake to great compassion, wisdom, and to joy. May kindness find reward. Let all who sorrow leave their grief. May this boundless light dispel the darkness of our endless night. Because our hearts are one, this world of pain turns into paradise. May all become compassionate. May all become compassionate and wise.